And welcome into another edition of our podcast, Drawing a Crowd, the Business of Sports Tourism. I'm Stan the Fan Charles of Pressbox and PressBoxOnline.com. With me, as always, is the Executive Director of Maryland Sports. He's got a whole host of other titles, but the whole podcast would take mentioning those things. And our special guest today is Ruth Toomey, the Executive Director of the Maryland Tourism Coalition, and she has been in that job since 2018, and I love your tortoise.
Thank you. Love
necklace.
the turtles.
Tell us, Terry, about the relationship that Maryland Sports has with the Maryland Tourism Coalition, because it's not just simply a sports-based relationship.
No, it's critical that when you develop an initiative like we have with Team Maryland, working across the state to bring people to Maryland to exercise, to participate in the activities they do, that you have to find strategic collaborating partners. And, Ruth and the team at the Maryland Tourism Coalition and the board of directors are the advocacy group that really educate, elevate, and, create an awareness and identity for the state of Maryland when it comes to all of tourism. And for us to do our job and do it well, we need to leverage and work with partners like the Maryland Tourism Coalition to ensure that, one, we're staying in tune with what's currently going on in the legislative session, also to make sure that we're in tune with what the stakeholders are really looking for when it comes to value-added opportunities tied into the sporting events that we're bringing to the state. So having a great partner and friend in the Maryland Tourism Coalition, and Ruth.
More importantly, a friend.
Yeah, no, Ruth is a great friend, has been a tremendous resource since even prior to her coming on board to being the executive director. So for us to grow sport tourism, we got to make sure that we're supporting all of tourism and its growth, and working with Ruth and her team and the board ensures that we are connecting all the dots in the equation.
Now, the other side of the coin is, what is it like working with Terry and how he's elevated the sports marketing for tourism in this state? Because it must make your job a heck of a lot more productive and easier, I would think. Harder in the sense that he's got so much going on.
Well, it's definitely never a dull moment working with Terry, and we are very fortunate to have Terry.
His wife says that, too.
We are very fortunate to have Terry also sit on as one of our board members. So it's really great having this partnership because it's helping elevate the mission of the Maryland Tourism Coalition, which is to connect, educate, and advocate. He almost got it right, across the state with our businesses. And, it's, as he said, it's not just about the sports. We recently also partnered up, was it last year for the first time, to attend the Maryland Municipal League summer conference together. And so that just shows, too, that it's not just always at the state level that we're partnering together. It's also going to be down in those city levels and local levels.
Terry sees the big picture in things, and it sounds like this is one of those things that having a partner like him is helpful, in that he sees that he's not just trying to work with you on sports, but other statewide initiatives that are important to him and to you.
Well, it's also the connection part, too. Having these big events across the state, you need other vendors and supporters, whether it's hotel rooms, caterers, whatever it might be, and having those connections that we can help together, put all those dots together to make it a great event for everybody.
So I think it's, as Ruth said, I mean, we are the consummate dot connectors, trying to make sure that we're drawing a beautiful picture for the state of Maryland. I get to do it through sports. She gets to do it through all the disciplines that are tied into the tourism, industry. But she hit on something that's really important. As I mentioned earlier, we're trying to collaborate and create strategic alliances and partnerships. And so it takes an entire village to grow that ecosystem. And, sometimes we get so focused in on our lanes that we forget that sometimes we got to create the dotted line so they can be passing allowed on the various roadways. And that's where Ruth and the team at the on our board of directors of the Tourism Coalition, and then collaborating back with some of the vendors and other folks that she mentioned, is not, we're building some things at the grassroots level, as she mentioned, MLL, going there and being at the city and the that level, and then we come up to MACO at the county level, and then we come up to other activities and it's the state level. So making sure the micro and the macro are talking to each other, and that ecosystem that we're developing around tourism, and in my world, what we're doing around sports tourism, coalesce into the greater collaboration to raise the state and to raise the profile of the state in a very positive way.
So I understand So I understand where you benefit from the relationship. In other words, can you give us a concrete example where you help from something that's non-sports, an event where you're able to help?
Well, I think it goes back to being part of the board, is seeing how other nonprofits, because the Maryland Tourism Coalition is a nonprofit, and I serve on some boards nationally, and being able to bring some of that, knowledge and expertise back to, strategies that some folks in tourism that might be in the hotel side or the vendor side or the like, they're used to seeing things in their channel. And so we can bring in another layer over the top of it to say, hey, I serve on this committee and this is how we looked at it. One of our previous guests, Matt Liver, was here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so Matt's on the board as well. So connecting what we're doing at the sports ETA level back to the state level, and then coming over and working with, MTC to make sure, when we're creating bylaws and we're creating, structural governance issues, that we're making sure that all aspects of tourism have a seat at the table, and making sure that we're covering those things, and we're not alienating anybody by making a rule or decision that affects how we advocate and how we educate. And so those things are critical. And Ruth has done a dynamic job of making sure that our board is regionally diverse, demographically diverse, and making sure that seats are filled with people who are passionate and care about what our industry is about. And I mean the industry of tourism. And like I said, I get a chance to focus in very micro on the sports side and do what I can. But it's a relationship that makes sure that we are giving each other's tools to be stronger at our positions.
Can you care to elaborate on what Terry was talking about?
Yeah, well, with all of his titles, and he has a lot of, times where he is working with other organizations across the country, that sometimes it's seeing it, well, this state is doing it this way, or seeing it, in another way, that it's like, oh, hey, like, let's try that. Why haven't we tried that? Like, does that conference really have 500 people at it? Like, so being able to have him bring that stuff back to me that I'm not able to get around to the different states to see it, that I can then, put it into our structure and say, how can we make that work?
When a sports event is taking place, such as the 5-star event or the Bike Classic, I understand that's going to bring people in. How do you end up helping support those things?
We help
those events.
Yes, we help, we using our different channels, whether it's social media or newsletters, just talking to our members, helping push out that, hey, it's coming, and that these are the things that are to see and do while you are here. Be ready to have these amount of people coming to your restaurants, be ready to have your hotels full of people. So it's really helping push out it's more of the education to our community of these events are coming. So there's some people who, we always say, be a tourist in your own town, that are going to travel from the Eastern Shore to these different events. So helping promote to, hey, this is something different to do, but then also the education piece.
Let me add on to that just a little bit. So she probably doesn't know this, but because of our relationship with MTC on the Cycling Classic, couple of our sponsors came in through that vehicle. Our catering partners, on the finish line area, down on Pratt Street in downtown Baltimore, is because of meetings that we were at with the Maryland Tourism Coalition and Taste of Maryland and others. Fogo de Chao and Philip raised their hand saying, hey, you're on both sides. Your finish line is on both sides. Why don't we, figure out a way to create an environment that we, one, get people through our storefront, but two, you're bringing in business leaders, you're bringing in the corporate clientele, you're bringing in tourists and the like. We love to be able to share our wares. And because I was able to be in a room with those folks because of the Tourism Coalition, it benefited the race, but then it also another group advocating for why the race is important, how it's adding to the economy, how it's adding to the visitation experience. So those intersecting relationships are so critical, but that probably wouldn't have come to fruition if Ruth hadn't invited us to an event or an activity that the Tourism Coalition was hosting.
Sounds like a testimonial to me.
Ruth, you've been in your position since 2018. I know you worked for Arundel Mills for a while. So were you cognizant of what Terry was doing in the state? And my question is, Terry doesn't like to toot his own horn, so to speak, but how much further has Maryland grown in the overall tourism battle since Terry's been here?
It's definitely changed. And when I was at Arundel Mills, that's actually when I first met Terry. I was just, actually, I wasn't even involved as far as a board member. My boss was and took me to my first conference, and that's when I met Terry. But yes, it's definitely grown. That was about 2010, and here we're at, you know, gosh, 2025. And just all the different things he's brought into the state has definitely increased, you know, a lot. You've added on what now? Cycling Classic.
And the cycling class, the 5-star, and then how we've helped grow, you know, things like the Governor's Challenge, where James was in here earlier, and how we've helped him elevate that. So, you know, like going back to the mission of the Tourism Coalition, which Ruth alluded to, we're doing that same thing in sports tourism and doing it through this podcast and bringing various stakeholders, but also at the same time, things that might have been in their nascent development stage, we've been able to help them grow and perform probably beyond their wares because of having a dedicated office in the state. But it goes back again to the relationships and developing the relationships and building on those and being at the right networking opportunities. And that's where MTC does a great job. We have Tourism Day coming up here in February, and we're really excited about that because our partners all come together on Annapolis. We go out there, we meet with the legislators and the like, but it's Ruth's team at MTC that gets all of this orchestrated so that we have the platform to have a successful voice while we're trying to fight for budgets or we're trying to fight for other resources that come into the toolkit that we need each year. So if she wasn't building those tools and that leveraging those opportunities for us to come into, you know, come over the top and experience, you know, the door might be closed on us on some conversations, but because they keep the doors open, we have a platform to go in.
It sounds like that old adage, teamwork makes the dream work, is
Absolutely.
really what you're all about. Mm-hmm. And you're one of the team members. There's no question about it. Tell me a little bit about Tourism Day.
So Tourism Day will be on February 14th. We are falling in love with tourism. And we'll have...
I see what you did there.
We are making sure that our legislators know the importance of how important that tourism is to our ecosystem. Yes, we are showing them some love with the budget deficit, making sure our tourism budget does not get cut. But we will start with a networking breakfast at the Visit Annapolis and Anne Arundel County Visitor Center. And then we encourage our visitors or our guests to go and do door-to-doors and visit the different offices, drop off some bags, some information about how important tourism is. And then we actually have a sit-down lunch at Ram's Head, and this year we are actually going to be honoring Secretary Kevin Addix as the Tourism Person of the Year. He wasn't able to join us at our conference because he was in the Philippines, so we are going to do that special presentation, and then Delegate Wayne Hartman also won Tourism Advocate of the Year, and we're going to re-recognize him in front of his peers at this event.
This spring will be the 150th running of the Preakness Stakes at Pimlico.
Yep.
Does that present an opportunity to the state?
It definitely does. It shines a national spotlight on Maryland and Baltimore. The governor keeps talking about this is Maryland's decade, but it's really Maryland's decade for sports events, just different milestones. Deep Creek has their 100th anniversary this year. Ocean City is celebrating 150 along with the Preakness celebration. We also have the C&O Canal celebrating their 175th anniversary, and then we have the 25th anniversary of the byways coming up too. So there's a lot going on, and so it puts some spotlights on Maryland.
What's next in this relationship with the
it's
Tourism Coalition?
It's just elevating the voice of the industry so that we continue to show the focus and the importance and the value and the job creation that's involved with our industry, showing the economic return the state's getting from the industry, and making sure that as we continue to collaborate together as organizations, that sports tourism always has a voice within the main scope of the entire tourism industry. So we're shoulder to shoulder. We're here to be a good partner to them, and I know they're a great partner to us. So we just got to make sure that we just can keep making those magical moments in Maryland come alive. The Preakness Festival, the theme of it's the magic of Maryland. It's more than just a horse race. So as we start building that thematic out, how our friends in tourism and the entire tourism come together, because that's the ultimate goal of the Preakness Festival 150 is to create a sustainable model so we're elevating and growing tourism opportunities in and around the Preakness Stakes each year, and it's not just about Black Eyed Susan and Preakness Day. there's
gonna
things
be
and
about-
activities and bringing not only guests in to experience it, but making sure all Marylanders have an opportunity to feel like they're connected to it in one way or another. Not everybody can get out to Pimlico. And not everybody's going to be able to get out to Laurel next year and then back at Pimlico the following year. But we have to make sure people feel engaged and connected to the opportunity. And that's what the festival is about, creating very diverse experiences and opportunities. Because, someone who likes to go to the track and watch horse racing, well,
you're a Kentucky guy. Yeah.
So, but there are people who love to see it on TV, but don't ever want to go out there. But they love a concert, or they love to be part of bringing communities together and celebrating around the activity. So we got to make sure there's a very diverse population base of activities, and making sure that our tourism partners are aware how they can get engaged, where they can connect to it, and celebrate with us. And it's not just about the horse race; it's about so much more.
It's exciting, and the First Lady is very involved with the Preakness Festival.
Yes, she
and
is.
We're going to have her on in a future
Yes,
podcast.
we are working towards that. Right now, we're in the strategic and strategy session phase. We got out of the gate right, pun intended there. Got out of the gate right before the holidays. Now we're putting all the strategic and the subcommittees and all that things together right now. And so here in the next week or two, we will be able to start releasing some of the work that's been done by the host committee and the steering committee and the subcommittees, so we can start laying out the calendar events, the activities you can expect to see. So February is a very important month, and it will, with Tourism Day and having the energy and the enthusiasm that we create down there on the 14th of February, then creating some more energy about what the festival is going to be towards the latter part of the month, and then you get into March and April, and then next thing you know, it's the third weekend of May, and down the stretch they come.
I've got a last question for both of you. Terry's worked under Governor O'Malley, Governor Hogan, and now Governor Moore. Governor Moore has a much more dynamic personality than, not that Martin didn't have a dynamic personality, but he really is an amazing cheerleader. Mm-hmm. Does he really get tourism in a way that the other I'm not saying anybody was against tourism, but he really seems like he is always pushing positivity about the state. Ruth?
Oh, yeah. He's definitely always pushing how great is our motto is you're welcome. And it is you're welcome to come here. You're welcome to be part of it. It's all inclusive, really making sure that everybody does feel welcome to come to Maryland.
Yeah, I asked you that first because he's got to say good things about Governor Moore. No, seriously.
No, in all fairness,
he seems like he takes it even more seriously than his predecessors.
Yeah, I think in all fairness, in the three that you shared there, they all had their certain ways and their certain passion within tourism in the light. But Governor Moore recognizes that the front line to our state is really the tourism industry. I mean, when you come into the state, and you're welcome, the fact that you feel like you can be connected and engaged right starts at the hotels and the restaurants and everything that you visit when you come into the state. And 90+% of that is tourism related. So he realizes the value of small businesses and the communities that make up the fabric of tourism and how they lift to connect visitors coming in, but also making sure that the tools are there for locals to understand what they have to take advantage of in this great state. So he gets the dynamics of how visitors are important, but also the locals have to understand how to lift the tide of this. And the other, governors all did it in different ways, but he has, when you talk about dynamic personalities, I mean, he's
also he's inherited the engine you've created. I'm not trying to, I mean.
No, he's been a huge advocate to the work we've done. I'm very fortunate in the role that I have that, one, we have a governor, and I've had that get what we do, but then also having a chairman like Craig Thompson who understands what we're doing and the like. Tom Kelso was a great champion of what we did in that like. But when it's all said and done, we've had great leaders and great minds, and my job and responsibility is understand the shift of where it fits within the rank and order in the various sandboxes that come in with the different administrations, because it all shifts based on priorities and changes in the economy, changes in the dynamic of what's happening out in the society right now. But I've been blessed to have three great governors who have championed sport tourism, and I have great respect that I also have a great partner in MTC that allows us to do the work that we do in collaboration to make sure that we're doing the best.
And we haven't had a chance. The Governor's Challenge, how big a success was that? Have some of the numbers come in?
They're starting to come in, and you're starting to see on social media, the James and team are putting out, the number of teams that we have, the fact that we had representation from so many different states, plus Canada and Puerto Rico. So the fact that the Governor's Challenge is doing exactly what we want, is bringing people to the stadium during a really big need time, which is between Christmas and New Year, and getting a chance to see some of the best high school basketball in the country, both men and women's. He was doing a whole showcase of who's played in the Governor's Challenge in the past, and you're starting to see these guys in the NBA. You're seeing these guys now being on the D1 teams, across the country and the like. So that product has definitely taken off, and that's all James Simmons.
All right. You're aware of that and must love it.
Certainly do.
Okay. Ruth, thank you very much for coming in and spending some time with Terry and I. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
That's going to wrap us up this week for this podcast of Drawing a Crowd, the business of sports tourism. I'm Stan the Fan for Ruth Toomey and Terry Hasseltine.